So I am a decent way through my cut. I'm fully aware that the more time you spend in a calorie surplus, the better, but there are a few reasons I am still cutting. One, I want to essentially have a great reset of my physique. Once I am lean enough, I will be able to see exactly how much muscle I've gained throughout my time training, as it's hard to tell how your pecs and abs have developed when you're at a higher body fat percentage, for example. Two, I want a few more shredded pics. If you're a regular viewer of mine, you'll know I use the same 10 or so pics whenever I mention my past when I was shredded. This video goes over the whole gym story, but essentially I've only been shredded in 3 periods of my life. 2 of them where I considered my physique good. So, having more recent shred pics would help with the brand. My own personal social media, since it's been a while since I've uploaded any gym related pics there. Third, the more fat I gain, the more I need to cull off later. I was worried I wasn't able to get lean again with my current schedule, since back in the uni days, it was relatively easy to cut. I'd wake up at 9 AM, have 100 grams of rice bubbles with 300 mils of light milk, then shower, then get ready for gym, leave home at 10:30 AM, get to the gym by 11 AM, wouldn't leave until around 2 PM, which includes having a shower at the gym. Then usually I'd go to uni and study, or go to uni for a couple of hours, then go to work for my 5 to 10 PM shift at the supermarket, or have a basketball game later, whatever. But it was just easy to fast for a lot of this time since I had already gotten my gym sesh out of the way for the day. I didn't need much extra fuel for my body. I can study off lower calories, and later in my basketball career, I was more a bench player, so I didn't need to perform at a super high level. So I could function off lower calories. Plus, with the longer, tougher gym sessions and a more active lifestyle in general, for example, I'd walk 15 minutes to uni from my car park. It saved money on parking and was an extra 30 minutes of activity each time I went to uni. Plus my 4 to 5 supermarket shifts back then, which were a lot more active than my 5 days at the office now, my calorie expenditure was quite a bit higher, and my calorie intake could get lower without it affecting my ability to go about my everyday life. So anyway, back on track, now that I sit in an office 5 days a week, and now that my gym sessions are only around 4 to 5 per week, and they're even less when I have something pop up, which is often, and I burn less calories per gym session, and I'm less active in general since I don't walk 30 minutes up and back to uni most days, and I only do 2 supermarket shifts a week, I was worried that whatever fat I did gain in recent years, I wouldn't be able to cull off. Since my calorie expenditure is now much less, and I need higher calories to function with my 7-day work weeks, advanced study, stock market research, side hustle, and my gym routine. But it turns out I am doing pretty okay with the cut. Regardless, I want to continue the cut, as the lower body fat I start with for my next bulk, the less fat I'll need to cut off next cut. And fourth, it'll give me a good base to start lean bulking from. So I've got a bit to go before I'm considered shredded again. Even if this stifles muscle growth, it can be my niche. My last video on comparing yourself, one example I used was the fitness industry. Everyone in that fitness industry has their own physique. They're all good. Some are bigger than others, some are leaner than others, some have tats, some are powerlifters, some have facial hair, some don't. Some have better ab insertions, some have better quad insertions. We're all fit. No one is objectively better than the others. We're all good. So my distinct look will be a leaner look. Since it's always been a grind for me to build muscle, so I'll just play to my strengths. Not to say I'm giving up on gaining muscle, not at all. But for me, it's probably a better move to do a hard reset than slowly bulk over the years, as opposed to going ham on a dirty bulk, then culling that weight off later. So with all that said, I'll give you some tips I'm using now as someone who works a full-time office gig and a part-time supermarket gig. These tips are different than the ones I implemented back in my uni day, as the game is way different now with a 60-ish hour work week, as opposed to being a full-time uni student with part-time work. Tip number 1, skipping breakfast. So this plays into intermittent fasting. There's no actual hormonal benefits unless you fast for like a couple days. The whole intermittent fasting thing is a topic for another video, but fasting for 12 to 14 hours isn't going to enhance your hormones in the way you see advertised online. I use intermittent fasting as a tool in weight loss. It helps me achieve a calorie deficit, which is the main goal. If you can only eat for 12 hours a day, you have less time to consume calories than if you ate in a 16-hour eating window. Same thing with an 8-hour window, so on and so forth. So, I don't usually eat my first meal until around 10 am. At the office, I'll take my morning tea around then. I'll eat a can of tuna, a 185 gram can, which after you sift out the Springwater, works out to be around 28 grams of protein. So Monday to Friday, I have a can of tuna and some seaweed, which is one of my 2 sources of iodine in my diet. On Saturday, I also have my first tea break around 10 am, in which I have a can of tuna again, and I'll have toast instead of tuna. The toast is free since it's provided by the supermarket, and I'll have butter with this too. I usually have 4 slices of bread/toast, but later in the cut, if my weight stalls, this will be one of the first places to cull calories. I'm in a way eating less than I should during the week and eating more than I should during the weekend. As long as I'm in a net calorie deficit for the week, it's all good. As for Sundays, I don't start work till 1 PM, but I'll still have my first meal at around 10 am. Usually I wake up anywhere between 7:30 and 8:30 am. I'll weigh myself. If I woke up on the earlier side, I'll usually do some study or some work on my brand/side hustle. Sometimes I'll start cooking something depending on if I'm running low on red meat/sweet potatoes for my lunches. I'll have a workout in my home shed between 9 am to 9:45 am. Sometimes a little later, sometimes the workout's a little bit longer, but it's never over an hour. I'll do this fasted, and it'll literally just be 3 sets of rope upright rows supersetted with hanging leg raises, then 3 sets of bicep cable curls supersetted with hanging leg raises, then 3 sets of tricep pushdowns supersetted with cable reverse crunches. The arms are for extra volume in my arms, obviously, as my arms are lacking. Also, it's just a nice, quick and easy workout. You barely need a warm-up for your arms, but legs, back, chest require a lot more of a warm-up, which would eat into my time, so I just do quick and easy movements. And the abs are for the ab-focused training split I'm currently running. Since we are cutting, may as well take advantage of the extra visibility in my abs. But anyway, after this, I'll have my Sunday brekkie, which is 6 eggs, 80ish grams of spinach and 100 grams of Just Right cereal, and 300 mils of light milk. This is yet another example of pushing out the first meal, as this is the only thing I'll eat on a Sunday until around 3:30 PM, which is my first tea break at the supermarket, which is tuna and toast. So all of that is to say, pushing out your first meal is an underrated trick in consuming less calories. If I ate brekkie every morning before the office, that's an extra 300 to 400 calories, depending on the size of your breakfast, you carry with you for the rest of the day. Whereas, if you ditch breakfast, you can have this later in the day. Skipping 300 to 400 calories in the morning is literally all I need for me to be in a deficit. Nothing else in my diet has changed from like October. I've just skipped breakfast, I don't do any extra cardio, and I'm in a deficit. Now the reason I don't push my first meal till even later in the day is fourfold. 1, I don't need to eat any less calories yet. I'm still dropping weight. 2, without the 28 grams of tuna, my protein intake is way lower than it needs to be. And unless I cram the tuna in with my lunch or my dinner when I get home from the gym, I will miss out on this protein intake if I don't have it now. My other meals are satiating, filling, enough to the point where I'm not hungry after the meal. If that was the case, I may look at having tuna alongside these meals and pushing out my first meal even later. 3. Your body can only utilize amino acids that are readily available in the bloodstream. This in English means your body doesn't store protein, you can only use what you've recently eaten, which is where the idea of protein every 3 to 4 hours comes from. This isn't a big deal by any means, total intake and quality is more important. If I wasn't dropping any weight for a while, maybe I'd have less toast/less sweet potato/less rice with my other meals and have tuna alongside those meals, but since I don't need to, I may as well have my protein intake spaced out a little. The reason I don't have tuna first thing in the morning, so my protein is even more spaced out, is because then I'd have like 5-ish hours till my next meal, which would be lunchtime, and without the tuna on my tea break to hold me over till then, I'd get really hungry at both jobs. It's easier to just not eat after waking. Plus, I chew gum in the mornings before my first meal, which ties into my second tip. Tip 2. Chew gum. I use one bit of Phalim and one bit of strawberry flavoured gum from the supermarket. Phalim you find on Amazon. Mastic is apparently tougher and more natural, but both bits of mastic gum I've ordered, I left in the car because I'm an idiot, and they melted. So fuck it, I'll just use Phalim gum. Phalim is tougher, but it tastes like bland shit, whereas the supermarket gum tastes good, but is quite weak. You can have multiple bits of gum from the supermarket, but I found combining Phalim and regular gum tends to be tougher than just stacking regular gum. The toughness is irrelevant for hunger prevention purposes, but it does help resistance for your masseter muscle, which helps your jawline for anyone who's looking at looks maxing. The main thing is getting leaner, but this does help. If you don't care about this, maybe just regular supermarket gum will work to stave off hunger until your first meal. Don't swallow the gum once you're done either. We've all heard the myth as kids, if you swallow gum, it takes 7 years to leave your body. Well, at least it was a rumour here where I grew up in rural Australia. I think the idea stems from the fact that the primary ingredient in most gums is sorbitol, which is very slowly digested by human organs, hence the myth that it takes 7 years to leave the system. It's a lie. Some studies show you can consume around 10 grams without issues, whereas most bits of gum have around 1.25, but I still wouldn't suggest ingesting the gum, just spit it out once you're done. I know spitters are quitters, this is the only time I advocate for spitting over swallowing. Tip 3. Have lower calorie substitutes for the same nutritional source. Basically, if you eat something because of protein, or you eat something because of vitamin C, try a lower calorie option that contains the same nutrients. Example, instead of beef, go for kangaroo or leaner cuts of beef. Kangaroo is easier to get here in Australia, as I'm pretty sure the government pays people to go hunting for them. Not sure if it's for food or population control, but I know someone who does this for a living. Sounds fancy since it's, ooh look, a government job. Government jobs are way more secure than most private sector jobs, but they tend to pay less. If you have education and skills, that is. But that's a topic for another career-related video. This video is about the aesthetic stat. Regardless, go for lower calorie forms of meat. I'd advocate for red meat since it contains more B vitamins and other minerals like zinc, potassium, iron and others compared to meats like chicken. Yes, red meat is more expensive, but that's because it costs more to produce red meat than a chicken. There's also more time and input costs with the cost of red meat, such as going hunting for kangaroos or growing a calf to a cow instead of a chick to a chicken. But the nutrients are also at a premium. You get more nutritional bang for your buck with red meat as opposed to chicken. And no, red meat doesn't induce cancer. Very long story, but I'm pretty sure that originated from empirical studies that showed a correlation between red meat consumption and cancer. This was decades ago, but it's coincidental. It just so happens that people who ate more red meat did so because they ate more takeout burgers, smoked more, exercised less, etc. Vegans, in general, are more health conscious than the average person. The average person eats red meat, often through takeaway, and once you're on the list of cancer-inducing foods you stay on. So I thought I'd mention that in case you've heard the rubbish about red meat causing cancer. Now, I may fact check on screen if I have the time, but I recall hearing this from Lane Norton. Of course, you're free to fact check this yourself, but no, it doesn't increase your risk of cancer. People are out here worried about red meat consumption, all the while they're consuming seed oils on a daily basis, drinking alcohol, and being at a high body fat percentage and not exercising. Crazy. So yeah, go for lower calorie substitutes for foods you're already eating. As for things like vitamin C, like what I mentioned before, maybe you don't have a choice here. Foods like kiwi, mangoes, and oranges are good sources of vitamin C, especially given the fact that these are watery fruits. And vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, but they all have similar calories per 100 grams. Kiwis are about 16 grams, mangoes are about 15 grams, and oranges are about 12 grams of carbs per 100 grams, just for reference. My diet is as optimized as it can be for me personally, but in the case of your diet, you'll need to make amendments for yourself. I'll go over my current diet later, but the best diet is the one you'll follow. So maybe you don't want to copy and paste my diet as you won't follow it, although it does cover as many vitamins and minerals possible given the calories I have to work with currently. And I'm not hitting everything at the moment, but my goal isn't pure health slash peak performance, it's cutting, which inherently isn't ideal for peak performance or health. But anyway, moving on, you can also have stuff like lower carb potatoes, lower calorie rice, even stuff like cauliflowers that are super filling but lower on calories. Stuff like this can also help a lot. Also with tuna, as mentioned earlier, I have Springwater tuna. This is because there are no calories from fat in this. If you have tuna in olive oil or smoked, for example, you maybe have around 8 to 9 grams of fat, depending on the size of your can. This is around 72 to 81 calories, which is a huge amount when you get into cutting. You can cull this just by changing the type of tuna you buy. Yes, spring water tastes like shit compared to olive oil or smoked, but trust me, you'll get used to it. And if it's your first meal of the day like it is mine, you tend not to mind the taste as you're kinda hungry by this time. Anything tastes good. Tip 4, eating the same foods over time. There's less data behind this, but the idea is your metabolism becomes more efficient at digesting food. A good example of this is white rice. I have rice alongside my eggs and spinach as my dinner, as cooking it with more water fluffs it up a lot, increasing the volume of the food without increasing calories, and I've basically covered all my required nutrients for the day. Maybe I could get a little more potassium in my diet if I had potatoes instead, but I can't be asked to cook even more potatoes than I already do. Rice is easy, it cooks in the same time it takes for me to cook eggs, spinach, and eat them up. So like I will have rice cooking alongside when my eggs are cooking and I'm eating my spinach, and then I go to eat my eggs, and by the time I'm done with my eggs, the rice is ready. And rice is just easy, you just pour it into a pot, pour some water and let it boil. Potatoes, you need to cut it up and shit like that. It also takes longer to boil. As long as I'm getting enough potassium, I don't care. Having this extra potassium would eat into my sleep time too, as it takes longer to cook. Or if I cooked it in advance, it would eat into my study/online brand time. For example, if I have some time on a Monday or Friday night cooking it, I'd have to like keep an eye on it and cut it up and all that shit, and just eats into a bit of my study time. It wouldn't eat into it too much, but it's just not enjoyable for me. Like, I don't mind cooking, but I don't really want to have to cook more than I need to, and I don't really need the extra bit of potassium I could get from potatoes. I guess you could say this means my diet isn't as optimized as it could be, but I just prefer the taste of rice at the end of the night as opposed to more potatoes, but maybe this may change down the track. But back on track. It's all a balancing act. With rice though, be careful, as having too much water before bed, aka having very fluffy, watery rice, can lead you to wake up needing to urinate in the night, which disrupts sleep, which is super important. I'll touch on it later, but I have rice maybe 1.5 to 2 hours before I actually go to sleep, so I'm all good. But anyway, this video from Stan Efferding goes over this if you want more info. It's a good watch. I used to binge watch these videos back in late 2018, early 2019. The Rhino Rant series is criminally underrated. But yeah, the idea is after eating the same foods over and over again, your body gets way more efficient at digesting these foods. I eat basically the same foods every day since I enjoy them. It keeps things simple, and I know most of my nutrients are covered. But this likely does play a role in the progression of my cut too. Now again, there's a lot less data on this and I can't find much, but Stan's not really one to bullshit you. And if you watch the video, you'll understand where he's coming from. And in my personal experience, I found that this kind of actually works. Like, based on my calculations for where I think my metabolic rate is and the calories I'm consuming and my total daily energy expenditure and all that, after all the cuts, I found that I tend to get away with eating a little bit more food than calculated. I think it may have something to do with your body's digestion system getting a bit more efficient at processing foods. Now, take this with a grain of salt, do your own research, but personally, I found that it does help a bit. But regardless, eating the same thing every day takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And if you go through all of your foods and the quantities and look up what nutrients are in it and all that, you can be sure that you're hitting all your vitamins and minerals by eating the same thing every day. But moving on. Tip number 5, sleep. No shit. Everyone's heard this tip before, so I'm gonna spend maybe half a minute on it at most. The less you sleep, the more your ghrelin is increased, which is a hunger hormone, which makes it trickier for you to not overeat. So get your sleep. And we all know the benefits of sleep, yada yada. I'm not going to regurgitate stuff you've already heard. What I will mention though is CBD gummies. Regulars of mine already know this, but just order them from mixology.cbd or hempbombs.com. You eat one before bed, you're super tired in 15 to 20 minutes. Easy peasy. Now make sure you fall asleep within this time frame though. I found that if you have a CBD gummy and you start to get tired and you still power through and try and get some work done, you'll lose your little sleep window. But again, you'll have to just see how this works for yourself. But in my opinion, CBD gummies are the best, the undisputed best sleep hack. So here is my workout routine for my current cut. When I say ab focus, it's not like I'm doing 10 sets per session for abs. That's unnecessary, but most workouts start with an ab movement, simply because by the end of the workout, I'm super fatigued after, having to wake up early and then driving an hour to work, having a full day at the office, and then driving an hour back to the gym, then having a 2-hour session. It's about 1 hour, 40 minutes by the time I get to abs, but the point is I've had a very long day, and then on the Saturday at the supermarket, it's not as long of a drive, but it's a longer day because it's 8 to 5, 9 hours. It's less mentally stimulating, obviously, but it's more physically fatiguing, again, obviously. So it's not like if I have abs at the end of the workout, they're getting the best bang for their buck. So in this ab-focused program, they get chucked to the start of the workout. But yeah, if I leave them to the end, I'm super fatigued, and sometimes I opt for the easier ab movements as opposed to the harder ones, such as the hanging leg raise variants, which I find to be way more effective. You'll also note there is no barbell benching, squatting, or deadlifting. My reasons for this are in another video. Another video I haven't made yet, I'll make it eventually. As for the diet, as mentioned, my first meal is around 10 AM, tuna and seaweed on the weekdays. And then as for lunchtime, I have around 150 grams of red meat. At the moment it's kangaroo because that's a lot leaner than even the leanest amount of beef. And the super lean cuts of beef are really expensive too. So this is a money and aesthetic stat hack. Kangaroo over beef. At least it is here in Australia. I don't know kangaroo's availability overseas, but just opt for the lowest fat red meat you can find if you're cutting. When I'm bulking, I'll switch to beef, which has higher fat, and my reasons will be for another video, but it's got something to do with like cholesterol and nutrients, but that's not the point of this video. So yeah, I'll have the red meat, and then I'll have 200 grams of sweet potato. I may cut this down to 100 as the cut goes on if I need it. I have 1 kiwi, which is about 16 grams. I may split this 1 kiwi across like 2 meals. Like instead I'll have half a kiwi for lunch instead of 1 full kiwi, if I need to save that 8 grams of carbs approximately, but I feel that won't be necessary. And then I'll have 2 blocks of dark chocolate for lunch. As the cut progresses, I may skip the chocolate a couple days a week, for example, but I have the dark chocolate for nutrient reasons, as there are some vitamins and minerals in my diet that I don't really get without this dark chocolate. Now, this is my usual lunch. On Sundays, this is technically my dinner due to work because I work 1 till 10, so my last sort of break around 7:30, this is when I'll have this on a Sunday. I have a protein shake with 700 mils of light milk on my way home / on my way to the gym. Maybe I'll consume some of this in the afternoon at work, but by the time I get to the gym, this whole shake is consumed. I have my protein shake before my workout for 3 reasons. 1, convenience. Drinking this while driving is obviously easy. You can't eat while driving, or at least you shouldn't. As in like a can of tuna or something while you're driving. I've had Maccas and Hungry Jacks and shit while driving back in the day. I don't eat that anymore, but the point is protein shake is convenience. 2, spacing out protein intake, because if I eat nothing between lunch and dinner, that's like a good 7-ish, maybe 8.5 hours between protein intakes, and plus I'd be really hungry at gym anyway, so that wouldn't be fun. And number 3, if I have this protein shake after gym, that's a lot of liquid close to bedtime. I consume a lot of water in the gym as is. I don't need another 700 mils of liquid on top of that. After gym / after a couple of hours of being at home, if I go straight home and don't have gym that night, which is my Mondays and Fridays usually, I'll have 6 eggs 80 grams of spinach, and 100 grams of rice. Raw weight. I will weigh the pot raw and then pour the rice in and then cook that. And then I'll have some butter as well. How I calculate the rice is I weigh the pot before cooking. I put 200 to 300 grams of raw rice in at a time. Then I just split the pot in half or in thirds for the next 2 to 3 nights. Maybe I consume 120 grams of rice one night and 80 the next. Doesn't matter. I know in 3 days I'll have eaten 300 grams of raw rice, which is around 240 grams of carbs for those 3 meals. Saturdays I have tuna and toast with butter around 10 AM. For lunch it's the same as my office days. Maybe I'll have more toast, just depends how I feel. Before gym and during the workout, I'll sip on some of my protein shakes since I'm quite hungry around this time after a long shift of moderate physical activity, and whatever the shake I haven't consumed by the end of the workout, I'll drink on my way home from gym. Dinner is the same as weeknights. Sunday is 6 eggs, spinach and cereal as mentioned before. The first tea break is around 3:30 PM, which I have tuna and toast just like Saturdays. My lunch/dinner is around 7:20, 7:30 most nights. I'll have my usual kangaroo, etc., but I'll also have the protein shake. So I get in my protein because if I have it any later, it's too much liquid too close to bedtime. So roughly around 1900 calories during the office week. Most days recently it's been a bit more because I'll tend to just have an extra bowl of cereal at some point, or there'll be some sort of free food in the tea room, and because I'm still dropping weight on this cut, I'll have that. But if I wasn't dropping weight, I wouldn't be having this stuff. And then I have around 2400 calories for a supermarket Saturday and around 2300 for a supermarket Sunday. As I continue dropping weight, I will drop calories. I could increase cardio, aka increase the amount of calories I burn, but this is time consuming and it eats into my study/side hustle time. Not a worthwhile trade-off for me personally. I spend more than enough time on the aesthetic stat as it is. I don't really want it eating into my career/brand stat. It's just easier to lower the amount of rice I consume, have less toast, or have no toast, have less cereal on a Sunday, have less sweet potato, skip dark chocolate some days, or only have 4 to 5 egg yolks instead of 6 egg yolks some nights, or switch from light milk to skim milk. Those are some other extra options I have later in my cut once my weight loss starts to stall, but I'd rather do that than have to do cardio. But for now, I'm still dropping weight, so no adjustments necessary. Are you cutting or bulking at the moment? What tips do you have for cutting? That's all I've got for you for now. Thanks for your time. That is all.